everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. I thought I would jump on so that you could put a face to the name if you haven't seen some of my earlier videos, and I wanted to say thank you very much to all of you who have liked, commented, subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate your support. I hope that you enjoy today's video. Let's get started. Today we're going to be using IOD's Farm Animals and Queen Bee stamp. You can find a full product list in the description of this video and all your crafting needs on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. For today's projects, we're going to be using these books that I thrifted for $1 each. They are Reader's Digest books, so don't worry, they're not classics. After removing the book jackets, I'm going to be measuring each of the books against some drop cloth fabric that I have. I'm just working out how much I need for one, and then I'm using it as a bit of a pattern for the rest. As I was measuring what I'd need, I realized that the colors were showing through just a little bit, so I'm going to apply 2 coats of Dixie Belle's cotton chalk mineral paint on the covers of each of the books. I do not want the colors peeking through. I'm going to be using the drop cloth to cover these books, but you could always just stop after this step and then go on and decorate like we're going to do with stamps. It really is up to you. Once my paint is dry, I'm going to trim off the seam from the drop cloth that I cut earlier. I like to save these, and it'd be a bit too bulky if I left it on there while we're covering. Then I'm laying the book down on top of the drop cloth, and I'm working out where I'm going to have to place the glue. I'm going to apply hot glue on the edges of the book cover, and I'm just applying a thin strip, and then I'm lifting the book up and pulling the drop cloth over because there will be more tension when the books are closed. I'm then using a little spatula there to press down on the area that's been hot glued. As I don't want to burn myself, I'm notorious for doing that. I'm repeating the same step on the other side, lifting the book cover up and pulling the drop cloth over and making sure that it's got good contact with the hot glue. Now you'll probably notice some creases in my drop cloth fabric. I don't mind it, but you could always iron yours if this bothers you. Next, I'm going to make a small cut down the bottom of the book there near the spine so that when I apply the hot glue, I can pull the fabric up. And again, be very careful here. You don't want to burn yourself. And then I'm going to trim off the excess fabric in the corner there. So I'm going to repeat that step on the other side, making a cut along the bottom there near the spine, adding a bit more glue, and then pulling the fabric up. I'm also going to repeat that step for the top part of the book. I did have quite a bit of excess drop cloth there, so I am going to trim it before the next step. I definitely recommend using fabric scissors if you have them. I was just using my everyday scissors and it definitely didn't create a super tidy look, but I'm not after tidy here. I do want these to look vintage and worn, but if you want yours to look a bit more refined, I definitely recommend using some fabric scissors. I'm not going to be gluing my books closed or gluing my books together because I want to be able to still read these or have people be able to read these if they want. So you could actually probably do this with books that you've already got at home. Once I have the sides glued down, I'm going to very carefully trim off the excess on the top of the spine there. I'm going to add just a little bit more glue, and then I'm going to carefully press this down. I don't do this on all the books because I do actually like how it looks a little bit rougher when you don't glue the extra fabric down. But again, it really is up to you and the look you're going for. So we have our first book covered. In the next video, I am going to speed things up because you've seen me do one. You don't need to see me go through each one at a slow pace. So I'm just repeating those same steps, applying the glue around the edges of the book and then covering it with the drop cloth. We're going to be doing 3 different book stack designs, so 9 books in total. So this is the only time that you're going to see me actually covering the books for the next couple of book stacks. You will not see that process, but you could always go back and watch the beginning if you want to give this a try. I just didn't want to waste your time with me going through the exact same steps over and over again. So once I have my first set of 3 books organized, I'm going to stack them on top of each other. I'm going to make sure that I'm happy with the arrangement. These are all pretty close to the same size. I decided I wanted to use the lovely rabbit from the Farm Animals stamp, and I also decided that I was going to have to take it off the mount that it comes on because I needed it to be flexible to be able to get it into the gaps of the book. So I have pulled that off the backing there, but before I go any further, I decided I'm going to actually use some twine to tie the books together so that they stay together and that they don't fall apart while I'm stamping. Now that the books are secured together, I'm going to take my black IOD ink and I'm just pressing my ink pad over the top of the rabbit. I'm going to be a little bit more generous than I would doing any other stamping because this is going onto fabric and you want to make sure that it can actually get into the fibers. So I have inked up my stamp there and I am going to have to get a little wet wipe and quickly tidy up an area before I stamp it down. Then I'm going to turn it over and hover it. I haven't touched the book stack yet. I'm going to hover it where I want it to go, and then when I'm happy, I'm committed, I'm pressing down and I'm going to start working that stamp into the drop cloth fabric. I'm being careful not to press so hard that I topple the books over, but I do need to apply some pressure because there are gaps in between each of the books, and even though I don't need it to be perfect, I still want it to be a nice image. So I'm applying pressure with my fingers and working around the stamp and just checking and lifting it up gently to make sure that I've made good contact with as much of the stamp as possible. And when I'm happy with that, I will lift my stamp away. And this one's pretty simple. I'm just going to have that rabbit there. I think it's perfect for spring and Easter. Now I'm going to take off that twine that we put on there temporarily to hold the books together, and I'm grabbing my favorite Hessian ribbon from Costco. I hope you guys aren't sick of this. You could always go with something different. You could go with a colored ribbon, you could go with lace. I'm just going with this design, and then I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to create 2 loops that are about the same size, and then I'm going to tie those in a knot, and that's how I'm doing this bow. I'm not doing anything fancy. You could always go a bit more complicated if you want. This has wire in it, so I'm able to reshape the bow, and then I'm going to grab a couple of bits of greenery, and I've got a little bit of lavender there, and I really feel like that just finishes it off. And here's our first rabbit book stack. I just love how this turned out. I think that rabbit stamp is absolutely adorable. Let me know what you think of this book stack in the comments. For our next book stack, I am painting each of these books. As you can see, they are a darker color, so I need to paint them so that won't show through the drop cloth. So I'm giving each of them 2 coats of Dixie Belle's cotton. Once the paint's dry, I have gone and covered them with the drop cloth. Remember, you can go back to the start if you need to see a tutorial on how to do that. And I've decided we're going to use the Queen Bee stamp. Specifically, I am going to use one of the bee stamps. Now, I did think about adding the larger bee, but I wanted to also add the little laurel stamps there either side. And I thought that it looked just a bit too crowded having the larger bee. So you can see that I do actually decide to put the other laurel there to see if it's going to work, and unfortunately it doesn't, so I decided to go with the smaller bee, and I felt like that was just a bit of a better composition. And I also thought that it would be very sweet to add the sweet bow that's in that stamp collection there, and I really felt like that was just a lovely design. Now that I've worked out how I want my stamps to look, I'm going to add the bow first. So I'm using my black ink on my ink pad, and then I'm lining it up and carefully pressing it down. I'm doing this first because I want this image to be at the front of the design. So you always want to do that first. Then I'm grabbing the little plastic mask that comes with your stamps because I'm going to do some layering. So I'm inking up the laurel and positioning it, and the mask that I've added to the bow is going to make sure that the laurel that I'm pressing down now isn't going to impact the image of the bow. So I'm just pressing it down, applying a decent amount of pressure, pulling it away when I'm happy, making sure to replace the stamp mask, and then I'm coming in and I'm going to apply the other laurel. I did have to tidy up a little bit there with a wet wipe, and then I'm pressing the other side down. And again, once I'm happy, I'm going to carefully remove that. And I'm always careful, especially on a hot day like it was when I was doing this, to wipe off and clean my stamps so that the ink doesn't set in them. Finally, I'm going to add some ink to my little bee stamp, and I'm going to carefully position it and then press down. Next, I'm going to add the same ribbon from before, measuring it out and then tying a bow. And then this time I added some greenery that had some wattle in it, which is a beautiful yellow blossom, and I thought that went really nicely with the bee. I'm also then trimming the ends of the ribbon. And here's our bee book stack. I'm so happy with how this turned out. I think that it's very sweet, and the lovely yellow wattle blossoms really complement the bee design nicely. Let me know what you think of this book stack in the comments. For our final book stack, I also had to paint these books. Two of them were black, as you can see. The other one was white, but it did have some stains, and I really wanted these all to be uniform in color. So again, I've already covered these with the drop cloth. I'm tying the books together to keep them steady, and I'm going to use the crest design from the Queen Bee stamp, and I'm going to add an element of a border down the bottom as well. I'm just working out here what one I want to go with, but before that, we're going to ink up our crest design with the ink pad. I'm going to carefully position that where I want it to go and then press down. There was some bigger gaps between each of these books, so the image doesn't turn out perfectly, but again, that just adds to the character of the piece. Before I can add any more stamps, I've grabbed the mask for the crest, and then I have selected one of the borders to go with. I'm inking up just the sections I think I'll need, and then I'm pressing it down. I think this would be easier to use on a thin mount, but I just decided to go with it. So I'm inking it up and I'm applying it to the bottom and the top. I'm then going to add the same ribbon, and I am going to tie a bow just like before, and I'm also going to look at adding some greenery. So I went with a plainer style of greenery, and then I am trimming the ends of the ribbon, and I decided to add this little key here. Now I had already cast this and already painted it with Dixie Belle's gold gilding wax. It is a key from the Lock and Key Mould by IOD. It's been cast in resin. So I'm adding some twine to the little hoop that I added to the top of the key there, and then I'm going to tie it on. I just thought that this added a little bit of a touch of elegance to this book stack. It felt like it was just a little bit too plain, so I feel like this really added that special touch. So I'm adding a double knot to secure it in place, and then I'm going to trim off the excess twine. And here's our finished crest book stack. I think this came together nicely, and that little key really finishes it off and pairs with the crest stamp beautifully. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and that maybe it's inspired you to give some old, worn, tired books that you already have at home a makeover using drop cloth or chalk paint and some IOD stamps and even molds. If you enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you could give it a thumbs up and maybe share it out to some friends that you think might enjoy these projects. If you like DIY and thrift flips, make sure you check out my other videos. I have lots of projects that will inspire you to get started. If you're not already, I would love it if you could hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find all of the products used in today's video on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.